reports are emerging from major United States maritime hubs of a heightened biohazard response, as specialized hazmat units and federal health officials have been spotted at several ports of entry. This development follows a period of intense global concern regarding a rare and deadly hantavirus outbreak that has claimed multiple lives aboard an international cruise vessel. While official statements from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Department of Homeland Security emphasize that the risk to the general public remains extremely low, visible presence of personnel in full-body protective gear and breathing masks at dockside facilities has drawn significant attention. This response is framed by a rapidly evolving public health situation involving the MV Hondius, a Dutch-flagged vessel that has become the center of a multi-country hantavirus cluster. The core of the concern lies in the specific strain of the virus identified in this outbreak. While most hantaviruses are typically transmitted from rodents to humans through the inhalation of aerosolized excreta, the World Health Organization and the CDC have confirmed that the cases linked to this voyage involve the Andes virus, or ANDV. This particular species is unique among hantaviruses for its documented ability to spread through human-to-human contact. +2 hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS, is a severe and often fatal respiratory disease. It generally begins with flu-like symptoms including fever, fatigue, and muscle aches, particularly in large muscle groups such as the thighs, hips, and back. However, as the disease progresses, it can cause the lungs to fill with fluid, leading to acute respiratory distress syndrome and shock. The current outbreak was first reported to the World Health Organization on May 2026, after a cluster of passengers developed severe respiratory illness. The geographical scope of this event is vast, beginning in Ushuaia, Argentina, on April 1, 2026, and extending across the South Atlantic Ocean, with stops in some of the world's most remote and ecologically diverse regions, including mainland Antarctica, South Georgia Island, and the Tristan da Cunha archipelago. Public health reporting indicates that the first fatality occurred as early as April 11, involving a passenger who developed symptoms just 5 days after departure. As this ship moved toward the African coast and eventually toward Europe, international surveillance networks were triggered, leading to the current state of high alert at ports of entry where any connected cargo or personnel might arrive. The presence of hazmat units at U.S. ports is a direct reflection of this surveillance strategy, designed to intercept any potential transmission chain before it reaches the domestic population. +4 experts explain that the surveillance involves rigorous screening of manifests and medical logs of any vessel that has shared routes or logistics with the affected cruise line. The situation at the ports is described as a precautionary measure, focusing on monitoring for symptoms among crew members and ensuring that any biological waste or potentially contaminated materials are handled according to strict biocontainment protocols. The uncertainty surrounding the exact origin of the infection, whether it was a localized exposure in Argentina or contact with wildlife in remote territories, has necessitated this broad-spectrum response. And as we look at the logistics of this biohazard mobilization, it is clear that the primary goal is containment through visibility and rapid testing. The core developments of this outbreak center on the complex logistics of medical evacuation and the highly specialized laboratory testing currently underway across 3 continents. As of the second week of May 2026, the World Health Organization has reported at least 8 cases associated with the MV Hondius, with 6 of those being laboratory confirmed as Andes virus infections. The mortality rate in this cluster is high, with 3 confirmed deaths reported to date. This include a husband and wife who had traveled through various parts of South America before embarking on the cruise. Their deaths, occurring weeks apart in different locations, one on the ship and one in a hospital in South Africa, underscore the long incubation period and the sudden, aggressive onset of the illness. In response to the growing crisis, the United States coordinated a high-stakes evacuation of its citizens from the vessel. Following the ship's arrival in the Canary Islands, 17 American passengers were removed by personnel in full-body protective gear and flown via a charter flight to Omaha, Nebraska. This location was chosen specifically for its federally funded biocontainment capabilities at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. +4. According to official statements from the CDC and the Nebraska Medical Center, one of the evacuated passengers has already tested positive for the hantavirus but remains asymptomatic. This individual has been moved to the Nebraska Biocontainment Unit, a high-security facility designed to manage the world's most dangerous pathogens, while the remaining 16 passengers are being monitored in a national quarantine unit. The use of such facilities highlights the gravity with which federal agencies are treating the Andes virus, given its potential for person-to-person transmission. The testing process itself is intensive. Laboratories are utilizing polymerase chain reaction, or PCR, testing to detect viral genetic material alongside serology and metagenomics to sequence the specific strain. This data is critical for understanding if the virus has undergone any mutations that might increase its transmissibility in a confined environment like a cruise ship. +2, while the Americans are being treated and monitored in Nebraska, the MV Hondius itself remains under strict orders. Spanish authorities have confirmed that the vessel is currently sailing toward Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where it is scheduled to undergo a comprehensive and professional disinfection process. This journey is expected to take approximately 5 days, during which time the remaining crew and the body of a deceased passenger will remain on board. Officials have noted that the disembarking passengers were permitted to take only minimal essentials: cell phones, documentation, chargers, leaving all other luggage behind to be sterilized or destroyed to prevent the accidental transport of contaminated materials. This level of logistical control is rarely seen outside of major global health emergencies and serves to contrast the sensationalist biohazard headlines with the methodical, science-based reality of the response. The focus remains on identifying every individual who may have been in close contact with symptomatic cases, as the Andes virus can be spread through respiratory secretions, saliva, or direct contact with contaminated surfaces. The international composition of the ship's manifest, representing 23 different nationalities, has turned this into a massive global contact tracing exercise involving public health agencies from the UK, South Africa, the Netherlands, and Argentina. Prevention and ongoing surveillance are now the primary focus as the international community works to ensure this hantavirus cluster does not expand beyond the immediate contacts of the MV Hondius. Public health guidance remains clear. The most effective way to prevent hantavirus infection is the elimination of contact with rodent reservoirs and their waste. In the context of maritime travel and port logistics, this involves rigorous pest control and the use of specialized cleaning protocols. Authorities emphasize that when cleaning areas where rodents may have been present, dry sweeping or vacuuming must be strictly avoided. These actions can kick up dust and stir the virus into the air, where it can be easily inhaled. Instead, surfaces should be soaked with a disinfectant or a bleach solution and wiped down with wet materials. For the general public and travelers, the CDC recommends maintaining a high level of hand hygiene and remaining vigilant for symptoms for up to 45 days after potential exposure, given the virus's lengthy incubation period. +3. The limits of current medical knowledge regarding hantavirus are also a key part of official reporting. There is currently no specific vaccine or antiviral treatment for hantavirus infection. Medical intervention relies almost entirely on early supportive care. In severe cases of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, physicians may utilize extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, or ECMO, which takes over the work of the heart and lungs to allow the patient's body a chance to recover. Studies indicate that if ECMO is initiated early in the progression of the disease, survival rates can improve significantly, reaching up to 80%. However, the rapid deterioration seen in many patients means that clinical awareness and immediate hospitalization are the most critical factors for survival. Surveillance efforts will continue worldwide as the MV Hondius reaches its final destination and as the passengers in quarantine in Nebraska complete their monitoring periods. +1 officials from the World Health Organization and the Africa CDC have reiterated that while the situation is serious for those directly affected, there is no evidence of widespread community transmission. The risk to the global population is currently assessed as low. The sightings of hazmat units at U.S. ports should be viewed as part of this comprehensive global safety net, a visible sign of a system designed to detect and neutralize biological threats before they can escalate. As the investigation into the origin of this outbreak continues, including environmental testing of the ship and potential wildlife links in Antarctica and South America, the priority remains the health and safety of the repatriated citizens and the containment of the Andes virus strain. The situation remains under constant review by international health focal points, and further updates are expected as laboratory results from the asymptomatic cases and the ship's interior are finalized. For continued updates on this developing story and other global health reports, consider subscribing to our channel. The core developments of this outbreak center on a high-stakes coordination between the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Department of State, and specialized medical facilities. Following the initial reports of the cluster aboard the MV Hondius, the operational focus shifted to the extraction and biocontainment of high-risk individuals. The most significant development occurred with the repatriation of 17 United States citizens from the Canary Islands. These individuals were transported via a specialized aircraft equipped with biological isolation units and flown directly to Omaha, Nebraska. This specific location was selected due to the presence of the University of Nebraska Medical Center, which houses the National Biocontainment Unit, the same facility used during the 2014 Ebola crisis and subsequent high-consequence pathogen events. Medical officials in Nebraska have confirmed that while 16 of the individuals are being held for observation in the National Quarantine Unit, one passenger has already tested positive for the Hantavirus. This patient is currently being treated in a high-security isolation room where air is filtered through HEPA systems and all waste is sterilized on-site. Clinical reporting from the facility indicates that the patient is currently asymptomatic, which presents a complex challenge for surveillance. The virus may be present and potentially transmissible even before the onset of the characteristic respiratory distress. In the laboratory, the diagnostic effort is being led by the CDC's Viral Special Pathogens branch. Scientists are utilizing real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction, or RRT-PCR, to detect the specific RNA signatures of the Hantavirus. Unlike many other hantaviruses found in North America, such as the Sin Nombre virus, the Andes strain requires biosafety level 4 containment protocols when being cultured due to its unique capacity for person-to-person transmission. Lab technicians are also employing enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays, known as ELISA, to look for IgM and IgG antibodies, which help determine the stage of the infection and the body's immune response. A critical part of the current lab work involves genomic sequencing to see if this particular cluster shows any genetic drift that would explain the high attack rate observed on the ship. Officials are looking for specific markers in the viral genome that might facilitate easier binding to human lung cells. This data is being shared in real time through the Global Outbreak Alert and Response Network to ensure that labs at U.S. ports and international transit hubs are calibrated to detect this exact strain. The maritime logistics are equally complex. The MV Hondius, a vessel known for polar expeditions, is currently in transit to the port of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. International maritime authorities have placed the ship under a strict no disembarkation order for the remainder of its journey. The ship's manifest indicates that the voyage included passengers from 23 different countries, making the contact tracing efforts a massive multinational undertaking. In Spain and the Netherlands, port authorities are coordinating with the ship's owners to manage the remaining crew and the repatriation of the deceased. Reports indicate that the ship is carrying a body in its morgue, which must be handled with extreme care to prevent the release of aerosolized viral particles during transport to a specialized pathology lab. The Dutch government has already mobilized a professional biodecontamination team to meet the ship upon arrival. This team is prepared to use vaporized hydrogen peroxide and other industrial-grade verucidals to sterilize every cabin, ventilation duct, and common area. Regarding the reports of hazmat activity at United States ports, the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection have heightened their screening protocols for all vessels that have recently docked at South American or South Atlantic ports. While the MV Hondius itself is not headed to the U.S., the biohazard response at domestic docks involves the secondary screening of cargo containers and the monitoring of medical logs for any incoming crew showing signs of febrile illness. This is a layered defense strategy meant to catch any spillover cases from the international shipping network. Public health officials emphasize that these portside measures are precautionary, intended to validate the integrity of the supply chain and ensure that no secondary transmission chains are established via maritime trade. The uncertainty lies in the environmental stability of the virus. While hantaviruses typically degrade quickly outside a host, The cool, damp conditions of a ship's hold or a refrigerated container could potentially extend the window of viability, necessitating the rigorous decontamination spotted by observers at these ports. As the international public health community pivots from immediate crisis management to long-term prevention and containment, the focus remains on the specific protocols required to mitigate the spread of the Andes virus. Unlike most North American hantaviruses, which are exclusively zoonotic, the documented human-to-human transmission capability of the Andes strain necessitates a two-pronged prevention strategy. The first prong involves the standard interruption of rodent-human contact. Public health agencies like the CDC and the World Health Organization continue to emphasize that the primary risk factor for hantavirus remains exposure to the saliva, urine, or droppings of infected rodents. In maritime environments or port facilities, this translates to rigorous integrated pest management and the sealing of entry points as small as 1/4 of an inch. For individuals tasked with cleaning potentially contaminated areas, the practical takeaways are life-saving. Never use a vacuum or a broom, as these methods aerosolize viral particles, allowing them to be inhaled into the deep lung tissue. Instead, officials mandate the use of a 10% bleach solution or a commercial disinfectant to thoroughly soak the area for at least 5 minutes before wiping it down with paper towels or wet mops. In the context of the current outbreak, these protocols are being applied with industrial precision to the MV Hondius and its associated cargo to ensure that no viable viral load remains. The second prong of prevention involves the management of human contacts, a direct response to the unique risks posed by the Andes virus. Surveillance guidance for healthcare workers and port personnel currently involves the use of high-level personal protective gear, including N95 or P100 respirators, eye protection, double gloving, when interacting with individuals from the affected vessel. For the general public and travelers who may have shared logistics with the ship, the medical directive is active monitoring. Because the incubation period for the Andes virus can extend up to 6 weeks, individuals are advised to monitor their temperature twice daily and report any sudden onset of fever, severe muscle aches, or gastrointestinal distress immediately to health authorities. There is currently a critical limit to medical knowledge in this field. There are no FDA-approved vaccines or specific antiviral medications for hantavirus. Treatment is entirely supportive. However, clinical data from previous South American clusters indicates that early intervention with extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, or ECMO, can be the difference between life and death. By mechanically oxygenating the blood, ECMO allows the patient's lungs to rest, while the body's immune system attempts to clear the viral load. But this technology is only available in high-resource tertiary care centers, like the facility in Nebraska. The ethical dimensions of this reporting are as significant as the clinical ones. Public health officials are tasked with a difficult balance, maintaining total transparency to prevent the spread of a dangerous pathogen while avoiding the creation of unnecessary panic that could disrupt international trade or lead to the stigmatization of travelers. The visible presence of hazmat units at United States ports is a reflection of this commitment to transparency and readiness. It serves as a reminder that the global health infrastructure is functioning as designed, identifying a threat at a remote origin and tracking it across borders with redundant layers of screening. As we look forward, the success of this containment effort will be measured by the lack of secondary cases in the general population. The investigation into whether this outbreak was triggered by a specific environmental event in Argentina or a breach in shipboard hygiene remains ongoing. Until those final reports are released by the WHO and the Dutch health authorities, the global surveillance network remains on high alert. This event underscores the reality that in a hyper-connected world, a biological event in the most remote regions of the South Atlantic can have immediate implications for port security and public health policy thousands of miles away. For more on this developing story and continued reporting on global health security,